Hey guys, it's me. I'm back again for another video in my series talking about my method for learning Japanese. So last time we discussed immersion, and if you haven't seen that video, I highly recommend that you check it out first before this one. This time we're going to talk about SRS, which some of you who've learned languages before may have heard of it, others maybe not. SRS stands for Spaced Repetition System, and basically what it is it's a method of studying that is based off of flashcards. Only the difference is it's a computer program that spaces out those flashcards. Your recollection depends more on long-term memory than short-term memory. So one of the biggest issues with studying a new language is a lot of people think that you have to drill everything, that you have to write out a certain kanji 80 times or repeat it back to yourself 80 times to remember it. And that's, I'm sure on some level that works. I know in elementary school and whatnot, they tend to teach kids that way because kids don't really have the learning tools available to them that adults do. But I think that adults learn in a completely different manner than that. So I don't find, at least for me, drilling to be as effective. So the method that a lot of adults have used, and there's a lot of research behind, is spaced repetition systems. The most common one out there is Anki, and I'll provide a link at the bottom of the video to Anki. I recommend that you download it and check it out. But basically what Anki is it's a electronic flashcard program that you download and create cards in, or you can download pre-made decks of cards. And when I say cards, I mean flashcards. And what those cards are is they each essentially have a front and a back of the card. The front has the question on it, and then the back has the answer. And then it's also got a scoring system in place where you can rate how well you've done on the card. So a lot of people tend to think of flashcards as pass-fail, and you can certainly treat it that way if you want. But Anki's got a certain scoring system. That's generally four different scores that you can give yourself. Either you didn't remember it at all, you remembered it, but it was really, really, really difficult to recall, but you just barely remembered it. And then there's you did okay on it, or you did good on it. It came to you, but perhaps not quickly, or completely. And then there's the fourth choice, which is that you did excellent with it, that you were able to fully recall everything about the answer in almost an immediate fashion. And the difference between those is what spaced repetition does is it essentially spaces out the review to the next time that you see the card. So just backtracking here a couple of steps. Let's use the example of you have two cards in the deck. We'll say each one has a different kanji. Now one of these kanji that you get correct pretty much every time you review it, and the other one you struggle a little bit with. The way that Anki works is every time you answer a card that's correct, that's not the first option, which Anki calls again, it essentially adds a certain amount of time to that card before you review it again. By default, it starts off, I believe, the first time you answer it correct, it shows it to you within a minute. The second time, it'll come up again, and it'll say, it'll ask you for the answer, and if you get it right again, then it'll say, okay, now it's 10 minutes. And if you get it right again when it comes up after 10 minutes, at that point it'll move it out to a day. And then you won't see that card until the next day. So you'll open up Anki the next day, and that card will be there, waiting for you to answer it. Now, if you answer it incorrectly, it'll move it back a slot. So it'll say, okay, well, you got it wrong this time, so we're going to move it so that it comes up in 10 minutes. And then if you answer it again correctly after that 10 minutes, then you can continue. If you're already at the point where it's been answered, then at that point it would give you 2 days. And then depending on the answer that you give, it'll give you more or less time added on to that. So let's say, for instance, you answered a card, I'll just go with the example 5 times in a row correct. So the first time, it'll say, okay, review again a minute from now. The second time, it'll say, okay, 10 minutes. Next time, it'll be a day away. So then the next day, you come into Anki, review it again, get it correct again. It'll say, okay, now 2 days. You go in 2 days later, you answer the card correct again. It says, all right, maybe 4 days. And then 8 days, 16, whatever. And these are just arbitrary numbers. They're not exactly the numbers that Anki uses. It's a little bit more complicated than that. But one thing to bear in mind is the further to the right of the scale that you answer it correct. So that is, if it wasn't just hard, but you answered that it was good or it was easy, it'll give you additional time before it prompts you for the card again. So it may give you, an additional 50% or 25% more time on top of the correct answer if you answer it that it was, that the answer came to you easy. And what the idea is there is that essentially it leaves the cards that you more easily recall to not be reviewed as often as the cards that you're having issues with. So if there's something that you're really struggling with, you need to see that card more times than a card that you already know very, very well. But the other thing is it spaces it out just enough so that the cards that you do know well, you tend to hit them enough so that you don't lose them. So as you can probably guess by this so far, Anki is, at least for me, it's a daily activity. So every day I open up Anki at some point during the day. It's best to set up a schedule for yourself. When you first start with it, it'll be very quick. After a while, and you get a lot of cards, it may take you an hour or two to get through them. Depending on, again, your speed, recollection, how many cards you have, etc. But it's really something that needs to be done, kept up with every single day. It's something that I've stressed repeatedly on my blog, that it's important to keep up with your reviews and make sure that they're done when they're due. And when they're due, obviously, is, if you open up Anki and it says you have 5 cards due today, or 5 reviews due today, then you would need to complete those 5 reviews. If you have 100 reviews due today, then you need to complete those. It's something that I sort of treat as a game. I like to go through the report features that Anki has and sort of look at how many cards I'm getting right versus wrong, and maybe that's not everybody's cup of tea, but I find that it helps to be a little bit of a motivating factor when I get a lot of the cards right versus wrong. And getting cards wrong isn't necessarily a bad thing. In fact, it can help you in the long run. So it's not something that you should be afraid to do. If you can't recall the card and you say flip the card over, give me the answer, and you just could not get it, or you got it wrong, or something like that, you should definitely mark the again option over on the left-hand side. And the card will essentially reset its time, and it'll essentially start back at the 10-minute mark. And a lot of people may say, oh, well, maybe I don't want to undo all that work, but what's better, undoing the work or not knowing the card, not knowing the content of the card, rather? So, I really suggest that you use Anki. There's a few other programs out there. I've found that Anki works the best for me, simply because it's got mobile apps available, and it's got an online service that you can use to sync over the web. So any of your changes to your decks can be synced between your web account, your home machine, your work machine, your cell phone, whether that's an Android or an iPhone. And all those things can be synced together, so that way you're not constantly having to try and copy decks back and forth between different devices. And I really, really, really recommend that you take a serious look into spaced repetition systems. I will go ahead and include a link at the bottom in the description for a couple of different spaced repetition systems that are out there, including Anki, as well as the write-ups that I've done in the past on my blog about them. And I highly encourage you to read through those, and hopefully they will help you on your journey in learning Japanese. So please feel free to ask any questions that you may have about SRS, and stay tuned. I will be making another video about Anki and how to use Anki shortly in the very near future. So please stay tuned. Please subscribe if you like these videos, and stay tuned. Thanks.